Amazing. So we're into our last session of the day, and it's just been a ride that we've all been on throughout the day in all of these different sessions. And this one is sure to not disappoint. I'm so glad that everyone is still here and participating in this next session called Resilient Local Food Systems. And I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, Sandra Sutter. And she is an impressive gal, I have to say. It was really fun to be able to paste and look at everyone's bios that were submitted because all presenters are bringing forward such a rich perspective and take on adaptation in our region. So Sandra Sutter is the manager of external Indigenous relations at Farm Credit Canada. She's based in Calgary with over 15 years experience in Indigenous engagement. She's worked across many sectors, including agriculture, oil and gas, utilities, HR, and nonprofit sector. Sandra contributes her leadership to several Indigenous economic development, employment, and training-focused boards and committees across the country. In addition to her professional accolades, Sandra holds the honorary title of Lieutenant Colonel with 41 Signal Regiment in the Canadian Armed Forces and is an accomplished multi-award-winning recording artist and filmmaker, which makes me even more embarrassed for having sung a little bit before that last session. Her creative work focuses on truth and reconciliation and the empowerment of women. Her contributions have earned her national recognition, including being named one of WXN's top 100 most powerful women in Canada in 2019. That same year, she received both Esquawa Award and the Aboriginal Role Model of Alberta Award. Thank you for being here, Sandra, with Farm Credit Canada, and please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Wow, that was nice. Thanks, Liz. Thank you, everyone, for staying this long. And Liz gave me a little bit of flexibility. So either sitting in your chair or standing up behind your chair, I would like for all of us to reenact our favorite standing person. Standing people are the trees or the plants or the flowers. So just stretch and ground and send all that good mojo to the standing people, wherever they are. Oh, noise is permitted. Awesome, thank you for playing along. So in this session, we're gonna explore how to create sustainable agricultural practices that support food sovereignty, in fact, food security, and community health and ecological balance in a changed and changing climate. You're gonna hear different perspectives, not only with respect to climate, but also towards resiliency, sovereignty, and adaptation. Some of the discussion will include successive challenges of implementing at scale, regenerative recultural programming, and its relationship to food security and sovereignty. I think this is such an honor to get to moderate this panel because the content is very exciting. We're gonna host it in the same manner that most of the sessions have been hosted. Speakers will have 15 minutes, and some speakers will have an opportunity to ask questions after, either online or in person. So what does developing resilient local food systems and fostering sustainable practices with a focus on community engagement, food, product development, beekeeping, and youth programs look like? As massive carbon sinks and resilient ecosystems in their own right, the prairies play an important and often overlooked part in climate adaptation. And how does data enable us to make wise decisions for all our relations, including people and the land? How charged are your phones, and what does that do to the climate? What are some tried and tested management practices that can effectively build resiliency into the soil, grass, and livestock? And so along that, I'm very excited to welcome Nicole Baldwin to this stage. She is the Regenerative Agriculture Program Manager for ALUS, which is Alternative Land Use Services. She's an environmental professional working in the nonprofit sector to develop and manage programs that enhance resilience of ag systems, producers, and communities to biodiversity loss and climate change. Nicole works with communities, ranchers, and farmers to implement projects rooted in the principles of regenerative agriculture across the prairies She is an adaptation in action partner with a master's in environmental toxicology from the University of Saskatchewan. She is uniquely positioned to share with us. Nicole is growing roots not only with regenerative agriculture and stewardship in the prairies, but also within her own family. Come on up, Nicole.
Amazing. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction, Sandra. Yes, as she mentioned, I've got a toddler at home and I'm newly back from maternity leave, and this is my first time. I work from home, I work in the basement, so this is my first time escaping my basement since being back. So thank you all for being here with me. As I was sitting at lunch and reflecting, I was thinking to myself that I could have taken sound bites from almost every other presenter during the forum and just stitched them together and overlaid them with my own presentation. And I think that that's a real testament to the work that the ClimateWest team has done, very thoughtfully bringing us all together. So and a special thanks to all of you. I'm going to use my speaker's notes so that the timekeeper does not have to physically remove me from this stage. So please bear with me. As Sandra mentioned, I'm the Regenerative Agriculture Program Manager with ALUS. And today I'm going to talk about some of the work that ALUS does, specifically how our organization is building community and landscape resilience in communities across the prairies. During the planning meetings for this session, it was flagged that it's the first dedicated session solely to agriculture at a ClimateWest forum to date. And I think it's so timely and important that we're here because, as we know, agricultural producers and communities, rural communities, are impacted and will continue to be impacted by climate change. But they're also critical and often overlooked solutions providers if offered the right support. Oh, what about this? Yes, okay. So I'll begin with a brief overview of our organization. So ALUS is a national charitable organization that empowers farmers and ranchers to establish and maintain nature on their land. We take a slow and steady approach, so really 1 acre at a time. I was actually excited today to hear on the panel Alana mention the acre by acre approach. That aligns very well. We like to ensure that our work is very grounded in local landscape and social contexts and really look to make that lasting and meaningful change on the landscape. As a little ALUS fun fact, I'll draw your attention to our logo, which represents where our organization operates. So at the intersections of nature, water, and agriculture, represented in yellow. So our vision is a future where farmers and ranchers produce ecosystem services from nature-based solutions alongside food and fiber to help solve the crises of biodiversity loss and climate change. We believe that ecosystem service production is and should be viewed as economic activity. And what that looks like in an agricultural setting is viewing these ecosystem services as a crop with benefit to society, similar to food and fiber. To that end, ALUS offers a mechanism to governments, corporations, and really society at large to invest in those ecosystem services produced by farmers and ranchers in our network. Our projects are designed in collaboration with the farmer participant to complement existing farm operations. So they're very practical, they're very hands-on, they're farmer-led, really nature-based solutions to farming problems. The main outcome of the projects being the production of ecosystem services. So things like increased biodiversity and flood and drought mitigation. The session this morning really keyed me up well for that, Chuck and Jesse and Rennie. So I won't spend too much time trying to convince you all of the value of these ecosystem services, but we see the impacts of altered ecosystem cycles in the city, obviously, but these impacts can be even more stark in some cases in rural communities where folks' livelihoods are tied more closely to the land and municipal resources can be scarcer. So our program is rooted in local context. Each ALUS community is led by a partnership advisory committee made of at least 50% local farmers or ranchers, with the remaining 50% from other stakeholder groups, be it other nonprofit organizations or municipal government representation. This PAC makes all project decisions directed by local environmental priorities, which they also set as a group. One of our core values is collaboration over competition, which is a theme that we've heard many times here during this forum. The PAC community delivery model, as well as our flexible programming, really aims to complement existing community partnerships and policy, with the hopes that we are complementing and leveraging those efforts on the landscape instead of, swooping in and trying to reinvent the wheel. Related to building community health and resilience, ALUS sustains good quality rural job opportunities to keep those that are connected to the land near the land, while also supporting local businesses and contractors. And finally, my final point on this slide is that the issues of climate change and biodiversity loss are obviously wide-reaching in scale. They're provincial, they're national, they're global. ALUS's goal is to really position and uplift rural communities and producers as solutions providers, while empowering those local decision makers to make local environmental decisions supported by national, financial, and technical and administrative resources. So stepping on field here, alongside our marginal land programming, ALUS communities across the prairies deliver programming focused on the working landscape. So this includes Growing Roots, which is ALUS's regenerative agriculture program focused on regenerative cropping systems. The objective of the Growing Roots program is to integrate that edge of field ecosystem service production with the principles of regenerative agriculture. And the goal is really to create a very connected and edge-to-edge approach across entire landscapes that balances that edge of field stewardship of nature and biodiversity with that on-field management change. And really encourages the participant to take a systems view of the farm and recognize that what we're doing on the edge impacts what we're doing on the working landscape, and what we're doing there impacts the edge, and the whole system impacts the community and the landscape that surrounds it. We've developed our approach to regenerative agriculture program delivery based on lessons learned during the first couple of years. The communities that we work with identified the human element as particularly important with Regen Ag programming, and a particular strength of ALUS's community delivery and governance model. Our approach really emphasizes this social element, so we invest on knowledge transfer and community capacity building, particularly on that peer-to-peer scale. As I said before, we focus on nature-based solutions to farming problems, which translates to larger landscape scale benefits, including the production of ecosystem services and restoration of ecological balance both above and below ground. And related to that, regenerating rural communities by building a community of like-minded peers, investing in that community capacity, including those high-quality rural jobs, and supporting producers as they trial and they error during their regenerative journey really translates to increased prairie food sovereignty and community health. And to those ends, regenerative agriculture is these things listed. And on the flip side, and what can be missed in some discussions about Regen Ag, is that divorcing a practice from the underlying principles and the human element and that context, both social and landscape, and labeling that practice regenerative, it is not a regenerative way of thinking. So when thinking about lessons learned through the delivery of this type of programming, messaging comes to top of mind. And I'm sure there's many communications professionals in this room that are much more equipped to speak to this than I. But as we all know, tailoring messages to different audiences is a critical component of this work of adaptation and resilience that we're all doing. ALUS specializes in the recruitment and retention of rural and farming participants because the messages that they are receiving from us are not just tailored to them, but they're actually written by them. We have that direct line of sight to the working landscape and the folks that are working on it through our delivery, our community delivery model. When framing discussions about regenerative agriculture, we refer to the key motivations identified by the producers that we work with. So you can see on the graph here, things like building soil health, increasing soil organic matter, improving water infiltration. Obviously, all of these things are directly related to ecosystem services, but just using a different set of vocabulary to discuss them. So next, I've got a video, which I'm hoping the IT desk is going to be able to help me key up. We'll hear from Sean Smith, who is a producer participant in Manitoba. Okay, pause the timer.
My name's Sean Smith. I farm with my parents at ClimateWest Limited in Glenville, Manitoba. We've been here for over 100 years now. It's a century farm, and we're a third generation dairy farm. We milk 60 purebred dairy cattle and have 560 acres of farmland. It's mainly perennials and annuals for forage production. We've also recently, in the last 3 years, signed up for their Growing Roots Regenerative Agriculture project. The way we view Regen Ag is that it is mainly making our farm more sustainable and more resilient to both drought and severe weather events. And so I think when you're talking on a prairie ecosystem level, the more farms you have that are going to be able to withstand droughts and weather events, then the more healthy that prairie ecosystem is going to be. Particularly this solar watering project has been really nice. We've noticed that our cows are cleaner, less mastitis cases for cows that are drinking out of natural water sources. And that's really what stood out. And we've also noticed their pairing areas are definitely improving and coming back to life. For us, it's pretty direct correlation. When you're making your farm more resilient to drought or severe weather events, that means that when a drought does come, you're not going to have to buy as much feed. Or if a huge rainfall comes down, you're able to get onto your land and get farming sooner. So those things go hand in hand with the economic aspect of our farm. Well, I would definitely recommend ALUS to other farmers in the area. The organization kind of lets farmers be leaders, both when it comes to designing their programs, but also when it comes to implementing. They're going to be flexible and work with each individual farm for what they need. We take a lot of pride in what we do. We strongly believe that small farms make rural communities strong and good places to live. If we can make our farm more sustainable through regen ag practices, it's going to get passed on to the next generation, and it's going to be good for the community in the long run.
Oh, could we put my slide? Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the final point that I'll leave you with. So the work that we in this room are working towards prairie adaptation and resilience cannot be meaningfully realized without farmers. The prairie provinces contain 80% of Canada's farmland, and more than half of folks in Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta live rurally. Farmers are the primary stewards of prairie land, and I will acknowledge the complex colonial history that goes into that statement, but the reality is that their daily decisions impact how soil and water and biodiversity are being managed. They bring to the table that deep local context and the opportunity to blend food and fiber production with regeneration of these landscapes. So to put it simply, lasting prairie resilience depends on working lands, and working lands depend on the people who care for them and the communities that surround them. So thank you very much, and I will leave the stage. Okay, questions.
Thank you, Nicole. We are indeed on a journey together. That was fantastic. We have time for 2 questions. I don't know if we have any online, and I'll wander around and see if any tree people are going to go head up to the mic. We have one person heading up to a microphone.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit, like we would talk over the break, you mentioned that the activities that you run are based on a community. The community decides what the needs are and what the ways to accomplish and solve those needs are, which is probably unique or maybe unusual for organization. So the difference, your work and maybe other organizations that are working in this area.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So ALUS has a national body, ALUS Canada, the organization that I work for, provides that technical and administrative support to our community delivery partners. But at the heart of those community delivery organizations is that partnership advisory committee, which is made up of community members. So 50% local farmers and ranchers, and the remaining 50%, representatives from other local NGOs or municipal government representatives, whatever the case may be. So ALUS Canada is not prescriptive with our, set of best management practices, anything like that in terms of what we're handing over to the communities. They are setting their own environmental priorities based on the landscape and the social context there. And then it's our job to, support them kind of from the top, but it's not a top-down approach at all. It's completely community developed and community driven. Thank you.
No more questions? I will ask one. What are you most excited about?
So I think for myself, I grew up just down the road, just down Highway 11 from here, and kind of Davidson area for those that are familiar. And maybe my own biases from my upbringing there were that there was not going to be, or that there wasn't interest or appetite for this more like regenerative way of looking at our landscaping from the agricultural community. And so something that's been very exciting for me has been to see that, within the first 2 years of program delivery, we've been able to work with nearly 300 producers in Saskatchewan and Manitoba on actually implementing some of the practices rooted in regenerative principles. So I think for myself, that was a reframing of maybe my own biases and some of the things that I was worried about, honestly, that we would embark on this work and that no one else would come along. But it's been extremely motivating for me to see that not only are we engaging, the people that are already doing this work, but that we're really working with a diverse group of people who are interested that, again, due to my biases, I wouldn't necessarily know that or think it to look at them. So that's been very energizing for me. Thank you.
Well, you've been very energizing for all of us. How about a big hand for Nicole? Next up, we have Adrienne Tastad. She is the project coordinator for Living Lab in the Central Prairies and has worked at the intersection of agriculture and conservation for more than a decade here in Saskatchewan, throughout the prairies, and internationally. She is passionate about the value of native ecosystems and the importance of working collaboratively to sustain prairie life. With a Bachelor of Science and Agriculture from the University of Saskatchewan and a Master of Natural Resources Management from the University of Manitoba, Adrienne has a very prairie-specific background and a climate solutions focus. Some examples would include sequestering greenhouse gases, carbon capture, as well as related environmental and social benefits. So what are some of the key features and wise practices of prairie systems and beneficial management practices? Stay tuned and please join me in welcoming Adrienne.
Thanks, Sandra, and thanks to ClimateWest for having me here today. I'm here representing Living Lab Central Prairies, which is a large collaborative project. And together we're looking for prairie-proven solutions to increase the benefits of prairie agriculture, including its adaptation and resilience to climate change. Oh. Thank you. So our project relies on contributions from many supporters and funders. We have folks involved from the agriculture industry, from environmental NGOs, strong support from universities of Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Waterloo. The project is led by the South of the Divide Conservation Action Program, which is a Saskatchewan NGO, and the primary funder is Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So we're part of a national network of living labs. We're one of 2 living labs in Saskatchewan. The other is Bridge to Landwater Sky, who you heard from earlier. The living lab concept isn't unique to agriculture or to this program. It's an approach to innovation that centers the users of a practice or technology, forms partnerships with those folks, and then tests solutions in a real world context in collaboration with them. And the idea behind this is that it's a way of finding practical, locally appropriate solutions that are going to be more likely to be taken up by fellow users of the technology or practice. And so Agriculture Canada has seized on this concept, and it has used it in a couple of different funding programs. And right now they're funding a series of living labs through the Agricultural Climate Solutions Program, which is running from 2022 to 27. And so under this program, we're specifically tasked with looking for identifying and increasing the adoption of practices that sequester carbon and mitigate greenhouse gases while also providing other co-benefits from agriculture. And so in the Central Prairies Living Lab, we're working in the prairie ecoregions of Saskatchewan and a little bit in Southeast Alberta. As I mentioned, we're led by the South of the Divide Conservation Action Program. And SODCAP was actually created to address species at risk conservation on private lands in Southwest Saskatchewan. So they have a strong track record of working collaboratively with private land managers to make positive environmental changes on the landscape. And they and their stakeholders wanted to become involved in this climate solutions programming to help ensure that grasslands and grassland production systems were part of the climate solutions discourse. Livestock and cattle production sometimes gets a black eye in climate change discourse. And so this was an important opportunity to show the major contributions that native grasslands and other grass-based agriculture makes to climate change mitigation. At the same time, working on species at risk issues, it was clear to the organization and stakeholders that biodiversity and climate change are inextricably linked, and we shouldn't be pursuing climate solutions on agricultural land that come at the expense of biodiversity. And so SODCAP brought together a network of core producers, researchers, and other stakeholders to work together over the life of the project. And so these 30 core producers that we're working with are distributed across the prairie ecoregions. So in the brown, dark brown, and black soil zones of the prairies, they're all implementing similar practices, but in very different contexts. And this was an important part of the approach to make sure we could tease out when and where different practices can serve as beneficial management practices. And so farmers and ranchers are implementing practices on their operations. Researchers are monitoring the outcomes. And so we have a wide array of areas of expertise that are covered. We're doing soil sampling, vegetation monitoring, looking at livestock performance, greenhouse gas emissions, bird populations, insect populations, as well as the economic dimensions of implementing these practices and the social factors that come into play when they might be adopted or abandoned. So every living lab is different what they choose to work on. And so our network worked together to select practices to develop together using the living lab approach. So we together created these kind of umbrella categories of beneficial practices. And throughout the life of the project, we work to better define when and where these kinds of practices can be implemented and create benefits, climate benefits and others. And our general approach to creating these focal practices was to look at prairie ecosystems. We know that they are huge carbon sinks and that prairie systems have remained productive and resilient while experiencing some of the most extreme climate and climate variance on the planet. And so there are some features of these systems that make them so successful. And how can we integrate those features into our forms of agriculture to make agriculture more resilient? And so some of those features that we're looking hard at are diversity of the plant communities that we manage, perenniality of our systems, so making sure there are plants in place year-round, as well as grazing. Intermittent grazing is an important part of nutrient cycling in the prairies, and it's an important component to include in our prairie agriculture. And so the categories you can see on the screen include avoiding land conversion, so keeping all of those remnant native and naturalized landscapes that exist on prairie agricultural land, whether it's extensive native grasslands or field edges, shelter belts, those things that are important for storing carbon. Actively manipulating the timing and intensity of grazing and rest in ways that are beneficial, promoting perennials across the landscape. So that could be restoring native plant communities or making interventions to increase the longevity and the health of existing tame grass stands. And then moving into more annual crop scenarios, we're also looking at the impacts of polycropping. So that's bringing an element from prairie systems, the diversity of prairie plant communities, planting diverse species blends on annual cropland, and bringing the animal element onto that cropland to help cycle those nutrients, which can increase soil health and production benefits for subsequent crops. So the most exciting thing about our project is the diversity of producers that are involved and their different perspectives and experiences. So most of the operations we work with include livestock, but we have large and small producers. We have organic producers and people marketing through more conventional streams, and lots of different levels of experiences with the kinds of practices we're looking at. But they're all extremely committed to improving our understanding, our collective understanding of the benefits from agriculture, and very innovative folks who are willing to try lots of new things. So Arlie and Brett are from Vanscoy. You may know them if you're from Saskatoon. They're very involved in local food systems. They're the original owners of Old Love Restaurant, and they do lots of agritourism on their place, Farm 140. But here they're expressing a common theme in our project, which is that farming is at its best when it follows nature's lead. So we can look to nature for these solutions. But part of what's so great about our project and working together over time is that we're able to really go deep on this concept and explore what exactly those best strategies are in different contexts. So Justin is another producer who's involved in our project. He's a new rancher just starting out. And he has a pretty amazing vision of building his operation around restoration of prairie plant communities. And here he gives some specific reasons why he is choosing to rely on native species. And one thing to note here about his reasoning is that he's coming at this practice from many different angles. So he's thought it through and weighing many different factors when he's choosing to go down this road. that happens to have huge climate benefits. And so this is one of the really important things that we find when we're working with farmers and ranchers on these topics is the need to bring that sort of holistic framework and talk to them about all their various considerations when they're choosing to implement a new practice. And so part of the project is surveying and interviewing our core producers, but also other producers in the region to understand, how they're thinking about these practices and what the likelihood of their adoption is. So here on this slide, you're seeing the results of a survey of 401 prairie farmers and ranchers, just rating the degree to which they believe some of the practices we're looking at can store and sequester carbon in the soil. So it's interesting to us, this tracks pretty closely about what the scientific consensus is as well about these different opportunities. So maintaining native grasslands has a very strong chance of sequestering carbon, and then planting perennials next. But one of the things that the social scientists that we're working with this on like to point out is that 30 to 40% of folks who really aren't sure what they think about these practices and what the benefits might be are the people who we need to connect with and work with and understand more about what will take to shift their view of a practice and to talk to them about what benefits can be created by its adoption. And we're asking lots of other questions other than this. It's interesting, this is what they think about carbon sequestration, but when asked to rate, when they're rating what they make their management decisions are, what they make their decisions on, carbon sequestration is at the bottom of the list. But soil health is the #1 factor. And so we know those things are tightly correlated. And so we know that we need to be talking about soil health. Depending on who you're talking to, drought preparedness will be at the top. And so again, we know that we need to be talking about the drought preparedness benefits of these practices. So just to wrap up, we are very excited about the potential of the Living Lab model to make change in the prairie landscape. We've seen, even in the few years that this project has been going on so far, some amazing developments through the relationships that we've made. And we really see people learning from each other, both on a peer-to-peer basis and across lines between producers and researchers finding, clarifying, what it is that they need to be looking at to help articulate the benefits of these practices for folks. So I invite you to visit our website at prairielivinglab.com and follow along as we learn more through this process.
So thank you so much. That was amazing. We will have time for some questions. I loved that you talked about the strong network and yet the untapped network and the information that you can learn from that untapped network. I thought the economics of innovation and safeguarding biodiversity was also a great intersection. And I don't know if we talked about a couple of other things I don't remember in the conference, but it's June, it's National Indigenous History Month. So fantastic to be including Indigenous history and education and the natural laws of the land into the conversation here, as well as when we talk about diversity, it's really important to remember that it's also Pride Month, and we stand with all my relations in all of their beautiful colors. And tell us what you're most excited about while we're waiting.
Yeah, I think most excited about what producers are able to achieve in collaboration with one another, because seeing each individual operating on their place is incredibly inspiring in its own right. But when you get folks together to build off each other and to sort of take each other's experience and apply that to their own place, it's just incredible how fast everything's happening. So I think those formal collaborations where you're actively pulling that knowledge and repackaging it, and fostering those connections just to have a tremendous ability to move the whole industry forward.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi there. Ben Lewis with Farmers for Climate Solutions. So very much aligned with many of the things you've been talking about. But just, that slide about practices and what producers thought about them, but also that large middle section who are unsure, and just your thoughts in terms of, reaching those producers and the best ways to connect and kind of engage them.
Yeah, we're still figuring that out. I think a snowball approach is one of the things that we're looking at, is just like, who do you know that has expressed any interest in learning more, and let's get them to an event. So connecting with people through other people that they're comfortable with it seems to be one of the ways.
Again, thank you, Adrienne, and very much appreciated the conversation and presentation. And finally, our final speaker, Mark Hoimyr. He is a rancher as well as a board member with Farmers for Climate Solutions. Mark and his wife Laura and their family own and operate the Box H farm in Gladmar, Saskatchewan, where they run a cow-calf operation and direct market grass-fed beef, pastured pork, and honey. Over the past 20 years, their farm has evolved from a conventional mixed grain and cattle operation to a forage-based business that focuses on the health of the land to grow nourishing food. Mark enjoys the challenge of learning new ways to manage cattle and grazing that promote healthy soil on native prairie and team pastures. And I don't know if this is a typo or not, Mark. You'll have to explain this to everyone when I say you were going to talk about transitioning into Brazilians and farmers' perspectives on climate solutions, as well as the farm mentorship program. So if that's the wrong word, just make something up. We will all believe you. Please join us in welcoming Mark.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you to ClimateWest. Following 3 great presentations. That's bad luck on my part. I won't be buying a lottery ticket on the way home. Yes, my name is Mark Hoimyr. I am a rancher from South Central Saskatchewan. My wife Laura and I own and operate Box H Farm. We manage about 5,000 acres of grassland. Around 2/3 of that is native prairie, the remainder being tame perennial forage and annual forages. So we live in an area called the Missouri Coteau. It's full of a lot of hills, a lot of sloughs and wetlands, and it's a fantastic place to raise livestock. Our primary enterprise is cow-calf, but we do also finish some animals on grass and direct market them to consumer, and fool around with a few pastured pigs and some honeybees as well. So a local food system is only as healthy as the agriculture that supports it. And healthy soil is the foundation for all of that. The Farm Resilience Mentorship Program is a program that I really love. It is the reason that I got involved in Farmers for Climate Solutions in the first place. So through regional partners, in Saskatchewan here, that is Sask Soil, another organization that I'm involved in. FCS funds events that bring agricultural producers together who are interested in learning about improving their soil health and in improving the resilience of their operation. Farmers and ranchers in Saskatchewan manage some really diverse conditions, whether that's the size of their operation, labor restrictions, or just the climate that they farm in. This means that any new practice that's trying to be adopted has to be adopted to the specific uniqueness of each operation and where they are in their own context. And that's what makes the farm program and the events that they put on, the workshops, conferences, field days, peer-to-peer learning, so valuable, where producers can come, see what other producers are doing, learn from their successes, learn a little more from their failures, and it promotes the type of environment that really speeds up the acceptance and adoption of practices that move agriculture closer to sustainability. So resilience on farm. Basically, this just means that the soil, the grass, the livestock, the people are better capable of handling the challenges that get thrown at us. And there are a lot of challenges that get thrown at us. So whether that's a farmer trying to improve their soil health and their organic matter in their land to help mitigate the effects of droughts that may come, or a producer that is marketing some of their product directly to consumers locally and avoiding market fluctuations or currency swings. Resilience on farm is kind of the first step in self-insurance for agriculture. So one of the ways that we've tried to improve resilience on our farm is through grazing. Rather than allowing the livestock access to large tracts of land for long periods of time, we practice a high stock density, non-selective graze with an extended recovery period. Now, what this looks like is that we bunch our livestock up into very small groups for a very short amount of time, typically no more than a day, but definitely no longer than 3 or 4. And then we move them on, and we don't allow them access back to that piece of land on our tame forage for a year, and on our native prairie for up to 2 years. Another way to help you visualize this is that currently today, our livestock are occupying less than 1% of our total land base. That means that the other 99% is being rested, is recovering, or is just someplace that a bunch of wildlife are chilling out for the day. Some of the benefits of this style of grazing are that with large tracts of our land being stockpiled and saved for another year, we have a little bit of insurance in case of a drought rolls in. Also, when we have land or grass that is going to seed every year, it helps for rejuvenation. And going into winter standing, we catch the maximum amount of snow and therefore retain the maximum amount of moisture for the following spring. We believe that the large ruminant is a keystone species on the prairies. Like Rennie said, they're what built our grasslands. But even with that important role, they're just one species in a very diverse and complex ecosystem. Healthy, well-managed grasslands should be able to support a tremendous amount of wildlife. And that's something we're fortunate enough to see on a regular basis. So about 7 or 8 years ago, after we've been practicing some better management for a while, we began to see some of the effects on our soil, improved health of our grass, and the improved health of our livestock. And recognizing that when we sold into the commodity market, that some of the uniqueness of what we were doing and some of the improvements that we felt that we'd made was kind of being lost in the mix, we decided to very naively to jump into direct marketing. So fast forwarding to today, past a very steep learning curve, we're currently marketing beef, pork, and honey to over 75 active customers, 4 grocery stores, and 2 restaurants. It has been an extremely challenging and really rewarding experience. It's very common for agricultural producers to talk about or kind of more or less complain about how consumers are disconnected from the food that they eat and how it's grown. And this is fair. Our food system does a really good job of segregating our consumer from the primary producer. What I don't think we realized, and what a lot of agricultural producers don't recognize, is that that means we're disconnected from the consumer. When we now have the ability to talk to the people who are eating the food that we raise, it is it's really valuable. Listening to them, hearing what's important to them, what isn't important to them. It helps validate the effort and the work that we put in trying to raise them healthy food. And it also helps hold us accountable for the decisions that we make on farm. So talked about how sharing challenges in the farm program, sharing challenges and failures was impactful. So I thought I'd throw this in as well, except it's not failures, it's challenges, because I haven't quit yet. So one of the biggest challenges we found in the last few years has been trying to evaluate new management practices during a drought. When conditions are harsh, the livestock and the grass do not respond the way that we expect them to. And it makes evaluating anything new that you try extremely difficult. The flip side to that, I guess the benefit, is that those same harsh conditions have helped to highlight how important and meaningful the investment in infrastructure that we've made over the past 15 or 20 years has been in water and in fencing. It has allowed us to maintain a healthy rotation on our grasslands through years where previously it just would not have been an option at all. Another newer challenge has been the increase in the price of food. While we appreciate the high value of meat and what that does to our bottom line, the connection to consumer, it also highlights the flip side to that equation. It makes us really uncomfortable to think that there's people that can't afford the food that we're growing. And I guess we're very fortunate that we've been able to spent a lot of time telling our story, building a brand, and we have a group of people that believe there's value in what we're doing, and they're willing to pay for it. And the local processing is a real problem in the local meat industry. It doesn't matter how many we have on grasslands, if we can't get them from the pasture to the plate, it's not really impactful. So in trying to wrap up, I think we all agree that grasslands are important and have value, in particular native prairie. There is currently a lot of money being spent on researching their benefits and in incentivizing the health of the grasslands and in their ability to sequester carbon. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to make that translate into improved long-term profitability for a ranch. And that is a problem because ranchers are essentially the protectors of the grasslands. I am a big fan of the local food idea, concept, and I'm also very fortunate to have spent the majority of my life surrounded by grasslands. So it's probably natural that I want to try and mash the two together. But I can't imagine a better system than allowing producers to market their product locally, improving their profitability, while at the same time allowing consumers the ability to purchase high quality food and help contribute in protecting such a valuable natural resource, all while eating steak. And that's it for me.
Thank you. So we have time for a couple of questions. Sorry, I just wanted to see that stop, drop, and roll almost. You know, I think really important to highlight that we've been learning what doesn't work as well as what does. That the importance of listening is integral to building wise solutions, and that land, like us, needs to rest. So any questions online? Any questions in the room? You know what I'm going to ask you, right? No? Yeah. What are you most excited about?
I think I'm the most excited about the enthusiasm I see young people bringing to this style of agriculture. Earlier today, Lana and Keaton talking, you heard how enthusiastic they were. Jason talking about the farmers market stuff. That enthusiasm is what agriculture is in desperate need of, because it's really easy to be in the woe is me Igor mentality. And yeah, we need way more young people, and we need a really high level of enthusiasm to balance out us old farts and our pessimism.
Thank you, Mark. So we want to thank everyone again for staying. What a great panel talking about resilient local food systems. I think that there is opportunity for collaboration here and as well as with the rest of the room. Some of the takeaways, I think, in addition to a tremendous passion for agriculture and food, not only in this panel, but in this room, would be healthy soil, healthy grasslands, healthy crops, and healthy critters make healthy people and a healthy planet. We need to have healthy relationships. We need to share knowledge and make sure that we continue to be educated, and we need to work together. And I think that for me, it has been an honor in talking about and with these fine folks. And come on up, the floor is yours again. Thank you.